Fox News contributor Kaylee McGhee White. Kaylee, great to have you here. Good to see you again. Let's get right to the car, first of all, in these USAID documents. While confirmed as not an employee, there are obvious ties that we've seen with USAID and the funding of organizations, even in Palestine, issues with UNRWA and other organizations. Is there possibly more here?
Well, we don't know. This is the problem. And this has been one of the big questions with campus protests that have revolved around Israel-Palestine as well, is who is funding these very clearly coordinated and organized efforts to mobilize hundreds of young adults across multiple college campuses to get them to turn out for these events. And what Elon Musk and Doge discovered is that, unfortunately, the American taxpayers have been footing the bill for leftist radicalism. Now, we don't know whether this is another part of it, but quite frankly, it would not shock me if it were.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, the stance of the White House essentially is that we have allowed anti-Semitism to rage in this country and that the Biden administration basically created a breeding ground for it. An open border certainly contributing to that as well, because we have no idea who is in this country. And so we find ourselves in a situation where, you know, the Trump administration is now being attacked for trying to remove people that are actually trying to harm Americans.
Absolutely. And one of the things that we know about this suspect is that he illegally overstayed a tourist visa, and then the Biden administration granted him a work permit anyway. And so if you're Marco Rubio and Donald Trump, you should be feeling completely vindicated by the effort to really crack down on visas and to make sure that we have actual standards for who we are allowing into our country, both legally and illegally. Even if this guy had checked all of the lawful boxes to remain in the country, he still should not have been allowed in. His values are very clearly counter to the American people's. We should not want people like that in our country, and it's okay to say that.
Well, this goes back to the vetting or lack of it. And in the Biden administration, we have no idea what level of vetting even happened. Even when dealing with Egypt, which has its pluses but has a lot of minuses in identifying who's there and who's coming over here. With this and with the potential for looking at all the other from special interest countries, especially in the Middle East, should we be going further right now with people in this country?
I think that is Marco Rubio's plan. I think that's Donald Trump's plan. I think that you see that in some of the consequences that have immediately come down on this suspect. His family's being deported. They are finding every single consequence that they can apply to this guy, and they are coming down hard and fast. And that's what you have to do. It's the only way to disincentivize what is becoming increasingly radical and violent behavior from, unfortunately, a growing movement on the left. Let's just say it. And so we need to be clear that consequences are important and that the more the merrier from the Trump administration.
And the Trump administration is also looking at these student visas, looking at Harvard and all these different universities and wanting to crack down and vet in the same way who is coming in. We have a right to know, yet on campuses, they're screaming bloody murder at the fact that you want to look at people's social media accounts and know a little bit more about them as they're coming into this country. Why? Why is that such a terrible thing to do?
Right. There is no innate right to come to live in the United States of America and to be a privileged part of studying on our American campuses. And keep in mind that for every foreign student that we accept on a visa, that's an American student that is displaced, an American student that actually appreciates this country and understands what it stands for. That's what we need to return to, is getting back to the primary root of education, which is building up the American people for America itself, not for anyone else.
Yeah.
Moving on to number two here. Another national security threat, the Autopen. The Autopen presidency. The Justice Department now launched an official investigation into whether Joe Biden was mentally competent and personally involved in issuing a flurry of pardons and commutations during his final days in office, announced by the DOJ's new pardon attorney, Ed Martin. And, the White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt has weighed in on this today.
The president is making a good point when he discusses the usage of the Autopen. Who was running the country for the past 4 years? Perhaps those documents were signed with the Autopen, something that I believe the Department of Justice is looking into. As you saw, Ed Martin made an announcement at the Department of Justice this morning to launch an investigation because the American people deserve answers.
So if they were using the Autopen and Joe Biden had no knowledge, to me, whether we're talking about a pardon or an executive order or whatever it is, it's just not valid.
Absolutely. And Newt Gingrich actually made a really important point a couple weeks ago, where he pointed out that on January 17th, Biden signed 2,490 commutations, which is more than a president has ever signed in their entire presidency. Does anyone believe that Joe Biden was aware of every single one of the 2,490 commutations that were signed that day? Absolutely not. So that's why the investigation into the Autopen is so important, because we need names, or else the Democratic Party is going to do this again. There is no standard for accountability here unless names are named and people actually have to face consequences for abusing presidential authority.
Accountability. They're going after it. Kaylee McGhee White, thank you so much. Good to see you.
Thank you, Kaylee.